associate of the at the firm of Baker, Braverman, Barbadoro. She specializes in land use litigation and supports projects with land use specialty. And so we're very excited to have her today to help us to moderate this session. Kim, I'm going to just turn the floor right over to you and we'll get it started.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you very much. And I know anytime you have that long of a name, it's either a law firm or an accountant. So I can pretty much just figure that part out as it is. But I'm happy to be moderating this. I'm happy to be able to introduce Shelley North, the owner of Glow Beauty Boutique, where I go get my eyebrows done. And it's right down the road. They do a fabulous job, and also owns commercial real estate in Braintree. And Shelley, can you just tell us sort of how you got started, how you got to where you are now?
I mean, the short of it is, when I was younger, and I am like a third generation Braintree person, and my children, I do live in Braintree still, and my kids attend Braintree schools. But I did move away for quite a while, into Boston, and I moved to Florida for a bit. But when I was growing up, I grew up in the 80s. So it didn't matter that I wanted to be a hairdresser and worked at what's now Giovanna's. I worked there sweeping up hairs. It was Alessandra's back in the day, and then Allure and a couple different places. I had good grades, and my parents said, great, you can get your hairdressing degree or your cosmetology degree later, but you go to college first, because a lot of people at that point, especially growing up in the 50s and 60s, didn't always get the opportunity. So education was number one. So even through college, I still I worked in offices, and I still worked in hair salons. And then I graduated and kind of got caught up in the rat race and realized it wasn't for me. And I sent myself back to school to Elizabeth Grady back in 94 or 95. While I was working during the day at a consulting firm. Everybody in my family thought I was crazy because I had, pension, retirement, paid time off, great salary, perks, the whole bit. But it just wasn't for me. So I started working in aesthetics part-time, and then made the transition, and I worked in Boston on Newbury Street and Boylston Street. And that's right around the time when airbrush tanning became popular, and I became obsessed because as an esthetician, we really don't go out in the sun often, right? And there was one place, and it was in Revere, and you had to go over the bridge, and you waited forever to get into this like sunless tanning booth, almost like Ross from Friends. I don't know if anybody saw that episode. He did a horrible job on it, but that was becoming popular. And I said, ooh, I was like, this thing is like going to take off. This is like really awesome. And I said, even if I just do that one room, and I just have myself a little waxing room, waxing and facial room, I think this is going to be great. And I was going to work one morning, and I was coming down Elm Street. If anybody's familiar with Braintree, Nancy's Nail Salon's in front of you now, but it was a bridal boutique. And I saw Henry Noda, who at the time was like 85 years old, or probably not that old, but probably, putting a for rent sign in the Washington Street unit. And instead of taking a right to get on 93, I took a left. I pulled right in front. So Kristen's was Sharon's. There was nothing in that building. I waved, I walked through it, and I signed the lease 3 days later. And that was it. I've been there for 19 and a half years. It'll be 20 years in September.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah. So the space, because you have a fairly decent sized space there, did you end up adding?
Actually, yeah. Space? So I only had one little tiny corner. So it was just a tiny little lobby and 3 rooms in the back. And twice next door became available over the years. And it wasn't until about the 9th year that I was like, okay, I'm bursting at the seams. And it was originally 2 units. I mean, originally 1 unit that someone had broken out into 2. So we had to close, and then I had a contractor come in and open it up, and it then became the size it is today.
Okay, well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so I take it your family's supports your choice now, 20 years later.
Yeah, it took them a while, but yeah. I mean, I love my dad, but old school, worked for the telephone company for 35 years. Every week would come by and be like, did you pay your rent? Did you pay your utility? I'm like, Dad, I'm like a 27-year-old woman. Like, yes, I'm paying, you know what I mean? He was just so concerned and worried, but I mean, I appreciated all that, but yeah, so yeah, successful 20 years later. Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. And the last couple of years have obviously been quite a ride. So what are some of the biggest challenges, both in the last few years and starting off, that were maybe unanticipated, but just if you had thought about them going in, and obviously nobody could have thought about COVID going in, but something that here's a challenge and I figured out a way to address it, but boy, would it have been nice if I knew that going into that challenge.
I think so. I'm really blessed with long-term employees. Most of my people have been with me for a long time, and I feel as though if I could turn back the clock before COVID, I probably would have been recruiting during it, because during that time, people a lot of the time say, "Oh, it's the Great Resignation." I don't call it that. I call it the Great Migration. I mean, at least in my experience with employees and people out there in the workplace and friends, I would say that a lot of it had to do with the fact that either they squirreled some of that money and finally were able to buy something they wanted to buy, or finally was out of the routine they were in so long, so it gave them perspective of something new. So they might have had their third or fourth baby, or they might have moved down to Plymouth and the commute was too long, or they decided that they've done aesthetics for 15 years and this just isn't for them anymore. Their body's broken down and they just want to be at a nice office job part-time. So I was working so hard trying to keep everything together, right? A place for everybody to come back to. And, I was in there painting and sanding floor. I just wanted a great experience when the clients came back, and trying to make sure that when they came back, they had a business to come back to. I wasn't thinking as much of the changes going on in their lives. You know what I mean? Because you don't communicate as much because you're not there day to day. So if I had a magic wand and turn back the clock, I probably would have had more critical conversations of, instead of assuming everybody was kind of wanting the same thing, where are you at? And I was still really lucky. I mean, the majority of my staff did come back. And even if they only came back for 6 to 9 months, it was out of respect for me and the business and their clients. You know what I mean? I'm like, listen, we all need to get back on our feet, but I just want to let you know, we bought this house, we're moving in 3 months. This is kind of the plan. This is what we're doing.
Oh,
So I think
great.
the recruiting, even still now, I have, obviously being in business, I had a great conversation with a client the other day. She works for the state of Massachusetts on re-education. And there's massive program, and I don't know this, you watch the news and it's like, unemployment rates, or, people aren't going back to work, and people make up all these stories in their head of what's going on. And I'm sure some of them have some truth to them. But she told me, which I didn't realize this was available, and maybe you all do, but there's programs out there for the top 3 at-home professions. And not only do they train, they pay you minimum wage. So you're at home. So if you were a server or somebody that didn't make a consistent amount of money, right? Or you were in a low paying career, you're at home, you're not getting any less money. You're getting the same rate for 40 hours a week. You're going to school free. And then they have job placement.
Oh, yeah,
So
no,
a lot of people,
yeah.
tens of thousands of people are in these programs. And I had no clue up until last week.
Well, yeah, no, I haven't. I've heard
Nobody
about a
talks
lot of
about
different
that.
programs.
Right? Nobody talks about that. Yeah. Yeah. And if anybody's wondering, because I was very curious, the number one industry and the number one thing they're training for in-person and at home is cybersecurity.
Okay.
Yep. It automatically pays a salary between $75,000 and $100,000 a year with full benefits, and 80% of it is from home.
Wow.
Yeah. I was shocked.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And as far as the employees go, have you noticed the difference in turnover from before and after, as far as how long people are staying?
No, I think some of the people that I hired right when we reopened, knock on wood, they're still with me. We're still in the process of hiring more right now. I've always shied away. We technologically advanced, but I like, as you know, being a client, I like when someone is there to say, hi, how are you? I like when someone answers the phone. Nothing is worse to me than I have to dial, I call Verizon and I have to dial 25 numbers before I get a human being. And most of the time I don't get one. I get an appointment for someone to call me back. Right. But I am finding that we're going to have to start utilizing technology more for like self check-in, kind of like when you go to AFC Urgent Care in Braintree, they have those little kiosks and you just put your name in and then it checks all your information and you check the box that that's correct, or you check the box that it's okay for you to get text or marketing. And then someone will still be there to say, hi, can I help you with the product? Do we need to rebook, whatever? But because the turnover in that front desk, that guest services position tends to be lower paying, and it also tends to be a gateway into the rooms, we're just, we're getting less and less people. So we need to utilize some technology to keep our customer service up.
Okay, that makes sense. And you touched on this a little bit earlier, but small businesses make up a big part of the South Shore Chamber and the Braintree Chamber. And what made you decide to open your own small business as opposed to going to get a chair or work for somebody else? Like,
Well, I did work with someone else for quite a while. And with our licensure, we have to. It's like being an electrician or a plumber, right? You have to work 2.5 years, or 2.5 years, 2 years full time, or 3.5 years part time underneath someone else. And they've always had to sign your papers so that you can even get a certain licensure to open up your own shop. So it's kind of like that journeyman, apprentice type program. But I'm surrounded by entrepreneurs in my family. I mean, my Aunt Debbie owns Magic Years Nursery School in Braintree. She's had that for like 35 plus years. My Aunt Anna and my Uncle Dennis owned CF Data Systems for like 40 plus years in Weymouth. My grandmother owned a bridal shop in Rossi Center as a seamstress. Her and my aunt had a bridal shop. So my grandmother, she started Ann Taylor's back in the day. So I've always had a lot of women around me that were entrepreneurs. So it was kind of in my blood. Yeah.
That's great. And speaking of leaders, you participated in the Leadership South Shore program a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Are there any takeaways from that? Did you feel like that had any effect on the way you viewed your business or handled different things with your employees?
Well, our program in particular was the in COVID. So we only got out on location a couple of times. So we were offered, though, when I do want to take them up on going on a couple of the field trips, with the new graduating class, because there was a couple of things on the list that, we did it remotely, but it's never that same feel. But I think that just kind of like meeting that client this week and not realizing that this whole program was available to these people to get, re-educated and to get better careers and better pay. There's so many programs on the South Shore that people don't realize that exist. Right.
Yeah.
So I loved the fact that I was excited to come back and not only talk to the people that work with me, but then to talk to the hundreds of clients that come in and be like, oh, you might have an autistic son. Have you ever looked into this state program? I didn't know that existed. Oh my God, how did you not know that existed? I mean, I didn't know it existed, but you know what I mean? You're in that world. Or somebody who's in high school that didn't go to one of the VOTECs, but might want to go to a VOTEC and reevaluate that, or to even talk to friends that their kids are that age and say, hey, did you even look at this program? I never even knew it existed, but they had this whole room and they were building a house, I think that was the one in Canton. What is it called? Is it South Regional VOTEC? It wasn't Blue Hills. We've had that visit.
I'm not sure
You guys remember that?
Shore VOTEC.
Yes. Yeah. It was awesome. I mean, they had the whole framing. Someone did the framing. Someone came into the plumbing. The electrical group came into the electrical. I mean, it was just real life skills, that a lot of people don't have anymore. That, gets them a job at the end of the day.
Yeah, that was my perception also when I went through it. It was amazing how much was out there that you never even think of, or
it was great.
How there were such great services or different things to go to participate in. So fantastic.
Well, right, because I mean, just back, because again, my kids are in school, but and you have younger kids too. You have these blinders on of, when I was growing up, it was you have to go to college, you have to go to college, you have to go to college, because that was the thing. And not that I don't believe in college, I definitely do. And almost everybody that works for me has either a bachelor's or associates, and it's just, they just do. But I feel like there's a big shift right now back to the trades, not only because they're needed, but because not everybody, some people come out with $200,000 worth of loans, as we all know, and they don't use them. They end up going into a trade, and maybe they might have been better served, going into the trade and then getting a degree, getting the degree where the trade can help offset some of those costs.
And what made you apply? How did you find out about the program and what made you interested in applying for it?
I got a random email, and I don't know if that was from Stan, or Stan might have had something to do with that. Stan and I have a long-term relationship. He has an amazing magazine and has always been supportive towards Glow. And he was a member. And I was at a point where I had some time, and I do like to give back to the community, and I like to know what's going on around us. And I loved the whole idea of being part of something where either I could donate time or money, or just to get the word out so that people realize that you don't have to be in this box. And there's a lot of creative, amazing businesses out there that we can synergistically work together, even though it seems like we're on different places, just like we talked about. Mary Lou's and Braintree and Glow seem like they're two worlds apart, but they're really not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you could look at some of the things that you think have helped you become successful, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a decision you made, is there anything that comes to mind?
Let's see. I always listen to my gut. I'm not a reactor. I'm a big, someone can come to me and yes, I want to fix it, but I'm a huge, let me sleep on it. I have to sleep on it. I have to take calculated risks. I'm very fiscally sound, meaning I won't overspend for something. Let it be a building, let it be for a piece of equipment. I have to be able to put my head on the pillow at the end of the night and know I took a calculated risk, not like a fly at the seat of my pants risk, right? So I think that served me really well. And for management style, I always like to put myself in the shoes of the other person, truly, without getting too, personal, professional. But let's face it, when we walk through the door anyways, we, have a whole bunch of stuff behind us. And I feel like my long-term employees, I've had a lot of long-term employees because I was never an owner that said, I need full-time and you're going to stay full-time. Well, life changes. You might have had kids, you might have moved, you might have want to do a little side hustle. Maybe physically you can't do those hours. So I've always been very flexible as long as it works within the schedule and the other people. So it works for the whole, not for the one, and the one also being me. So I try to make things work for as many women, especially because I employ all women as possible, because we do wear very many different hats. And I feel as though as long as you can be flexible, we can help one another.
Well, it sounds like
I think that served me well. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to imagine that business type is fairly high turnover. So considering you've had employees for that
No,
long.
I mean, knock on wood, up until the pandemic, I have not had high turn. I've had 85-90% of my client, my staff for 15 plus years.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Great.
Yeah.
And I know you co-own the building that your business is in now. How did that come about, where you came to purchase it instead of your initial lease in 3 days?
So Henry Noda, Noda Realty Trust, he owned, though most people don't realize, that block starting at Pura Vida down to Alpha Pizza is 2 buildings. So from Pura Vida to Belisay is 1 building, and then there's another building. And Henry's wife was begging him to retire, and he was about, no exaggeration, like 90 years old. And she said, our children are in Florida and I want to go. And Shelley and Kristen are nice girls, and they've always kept their place nice. Why don't you ask them if they want it? And Kristen and I looked at each other and we were like, okay, I don't, we don't know what to do. So we went to Peter, oh my gosh, what's his last name? He's gone now, from Hingham Savings Bank. Hingham has always had the mortgages over there. And he sat down with us and told us exactly what we had to come up with and how to afford it. And we said, okay, let's do it. And we created a partnership. Now you have to remember, like, Kristen and I are neighbors. You know what I mean? Like, when, we have nothing to do with each other's businesses. We weren't business partners. We had a lot of catching up and figuring out how to work together. And, again, knock on wood, we created it like a company. Who's the COO, who's the CFO, who's signing the checks, who's the bookkeeper, so that it would work very professionally. And so we bought the first building. So then Henry said, oh, girls, I'm moving to Florida. Will you manage the other building? Right. So we were like, okay. And so we were managing that building for 3 years, just kind of like making sure we're paying off our building because we're two of the rents. So that didn't change much. You know what I mean? We knew we could cover it. And all of a sudden he calls us and he says, "Oh, girls, I'm selling the building." We're like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "And we want you to buy it." And we said, "Henry, we haven't even recovered from the first building." But he was amazing. He gave us a note. Hingham did part of the loan, but he gave us the down payment as a personal note.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's a very old school, doesn't happen often, unique situation. And I believe it happened because we have been in that building for so many years and we had taken care of it even before we bought it and managed it for him. So
Right.
yeah, it worked out.
That's a fantastic story.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah. And now when things happen, because we weren't landlords, we had no, I mean, not that we didn't know what we were doing. We took like a crash course and we were online and, you know, we're lucky we have Dick Pastor over at Castleman Rice and Pastor over in Quincy. He was our attorney. He, you know, he does everything with us. And anytime something happens, we call it being notarized, as in Henry Nota. Kristen's like, "We just got to be notarized. Just put on your Henry Nota face," because Henry only showed up on the first of the month, every month, and he acted like he came to talk to you, but he just sat in his lobby, you know, for his check. But you called him. There was no plumber coming. There was no electrician coming. I mean, he was old school. Unless you had a hole in your roof, even that wasn't being fixed for like a month. You know what I mean? So we're way better than that. But every once in a while, something happens, and Kristen's like, "We got to be like Henry. Just don't do it."
Except this morning, you were running around trying to fix an AC unit for one of the buildings.
Yeah, well, that's a different building.
Yeah.
That's a different building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how has that been for the past few years as being a landlord? And
So I gotta say, and I don't know if anybody here does commercial real estate. The office building's great. We're at 100% occupancy. I think for a while it was empty during the pandemic, and then people were like, "Get me the heck out of my house." So in that unit, there's 22 small, like 8x10. Each one has like a window. You know, you have your own walk, you have a lobby. So those work out great, right? So people, you know, and it was short rent, and people wanted a space to go do. We've had a couple turnovers, but nothing much, and those always went really quickly. The retail side of it, so the commercial block, that's had some changes. And I believe that's just because either the people didn't make it through the pandemic, excuse me, or pivot enough, you know, to go online to sell things. And, you know, things have changed a little bit. So now we're kind of going through a little bit of a change. We're really lucky. Pure Vita, which is a hair salon, is great. Kristen's is great. Glow is great. Bellassai, heartbrokenly, it's a great gift shop. It was sold right before the pandemic to a different owner, and she wasn't even able to get her hands around the business before she was closed. And she's done a very good job on trying to keep it going, but sadly, she's closing at the end of the month. So we are looking for a new neighbor for Bellassai. And then Exit Realty, he opened up other locations. He didn't need the Braintree location anymore. And then that rented to a Lash studio, but everybody else has stayed. So, and we get in a bakery. That's a new one too, which is really cool. Sprinkles, which was an ice cream shop. Sharon's awesome. She owned Kristen's before Kristen bought it. It was called Sharon's, and she always wanted a little ice cream shop, and she had retired, and she said, "I'm just going to try it." So she opened it up and then realized she was way more of an eggs and bacon 5 a.m. woman instead of an ice cream scooping at 9 p.m. person. So she gave it a run. She did okay. And now a bakery's going in there. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Nice. And with all this going on, how do you manage to balance your personal life and your kids?
What's that word? Huh?
Do they even know who you are? No,
Yeah.
I'm joking.
Yeah, I'm a little overwhelmed now just because I have a full-timer out at Glow. So I'm only in the rooms typically 2 mornings a week and 1 evening. And I have my regulars, you know, because again, I've been there 20 years. But right now I have a bunch of different hats on. And I was joking this morning with my manager at the shop, and I just said, "So listen, I'm off tomorrow because I don't have clients tomorrow." She goes, "Are we really off, or are we off?" You know, like off. And I go, oh, no, like I'm off. I'm shutting off my phone. And she said, seriously, if you do that, like, I don't know what I'm going to, she was teasing me. But most of the time I have days that I do certain things. So, Tuesday morning I see clients, then I have empowerment meetings Tuesday afternoon. I'm home, I get the kids, I do my thing. Thursday is my bookkeeping CPA day. That's it. QuickBooks for all the businesses, reconcile everything with the CPA bookkeeper, payrolls, whatever we need to do, all the banking, from 1 o'clock to whenever. It's just very focused. I have very certain days I do certain things.
Okay.
And you have to stay that way. I mean, I have a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old, and they're into sports, just like you were saying, and running around, and the stuff to be done.
What a fantastic role model for your kids, and seeing
You
doing
try,
all those
you
different
try,
things.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I
And you
think-
find little things like my daughter and I, it's our thing. We get up at 6 o'clock, we walk the dog, we go to Mary Lou's, we get our coffee. We have 45 minutes in the morning to connect before I run off to the gym, and she gets over to East. And then my son, it's the opposite. He's a night owl. So after the whole day's done, as long as we're sitting on the couch or doing something together, he's good. So we have that time. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. My husband, I don't know who he is. I haven't seen him.
Oh, details. I was just helping out.
Yeah,
Sometimes how I feel with mine also. I'm like, I'm really sorry.
No, he's awesome. My husband works for Amazon Web Services, and they started their travel schedule back in September, and he travels pretty heavily. So yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, good. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you for sharing all that information. We do have some time for questions. Who wants to raise their hand, or in the chat, or Courtney, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I can kind of jump in here. So the Q&A portion is open. So feel free to drop your question in the chat or raise your hand, or you can just unmute yourself. That's fine too. But these are, just meant to be informal. Shelley, it's super fun to get to know you a little bit more and learn a little bit more about kind of your background. Amazing to hear you've come from this large family of entrepreneurs, and it just kind of runs in your blood.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really cool. And we're starting to see a lot more of that around the region, and kind of people taking a little bit more of an entrepreneurial look at what they're hoping to do in the region. So fun to hear that anecdote firsthand. I have a quick question for you about kind of what you've seen in the area, and kind of how you've seen that shift over the years. And kind of what you see for what your vision is for that area that you're in Braintree, and what you'd like to see happen there.
Well, actually, I was going to ask Kim, are you going to the master plan meeting on Saturday?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I am on the master plan steering committee for Braintree right now. And it sounds really impressive, but really basically you sit there and answer a lot of questions for the consultants to go running and doing things. So Braintree, as we all know, has gone through a lot of growing pains, from a town with a town council to a mayor and more city-ish. And the more and more we go away from that town, which we had to, there's no doubt. I mean, Braintree was getting too big. Let it be, infrastructure, let it be the population, whatever it is, it did have to change the format so that one person kind of, had all the pieces of the pie in front of them. The thing that's heartbreaking to me is that we haven't quite gone over the growing pains yet, because if you look at the towns around us, Weymouth has beautiful new schools, Holbrook has beautiful new schools, Milton has beautiful new schools, and not just the schools, but even the roads look great, the beautification looks great. Some I was taking a ride through to pick my daughter up over at Minot Beach in Situate. She had a sleepover over there on Saturday night, and I took the long way because it was a Sunday and I knew there wasn't going to be traffic. And then I was coming back into Braintree, and I love Braintree. My heart's here. My businesses are here. We need to elevate it. We need more people that are talking about it to actually do something about it, right? There's no need to sometimes have things look the way they look and be allowed to look the way they look for as long as they can. And I know everybody's maxed out. I mean, everybody probably on this phone call's maxed out. Everybody's burnt out from the pandemic. There's not enough people to do the jobs. Everybody has a laundry list of things that they're working as hard as they can to check off, but it's never fast enough or good enough for anybody. And I think that's from a small business perspective. I think that's from a government perspective. I think it's from a large business perspective, that things move so quickly on social media, or, you see, ooh, before, you don't realize it was 3 weeks later and it's after. I mean, somebody makes it look like they, did a do-it-yourself project on a Sunday afternoon, like, and the magic wand went and the place looks gorgeous. In real life, that's not how it works. But people have this thought in their mind, that's how it's supposed to work. And then it's almost like you're overwhelmed and done before you even start. Does that make sense or resonate?
Mhm.
So with Braintree, I do feel there's a laundry list of things that need to get done. I don't feel like we utilize as much of our beautiful areas, such as in Jamaica Plain, they have the JP Pond, right? And they have the walking path all around it. And they have the, people bring their kayaks and paddle boards and sailing. We had that in Braintree. We used to have the little ropes, so that you could swim and take swimming lessons. We had a whole family that used to teach sailing lessons. The sailboats are still, they're just locked up. There's nobody to teach the lessons. I guess there's a company that comes in now for the paddle boards. But, why don't we have a walking path? Why don't we have, light of illumination where people come down to the pond and have all their little flashlights and, little lanterns and walk around the pond and make it a beautiful community event, or have Halloween strolls like they do in JP and Roslindale? Why don't we, there's a lot of things within the town that we could make more community involvement and beautify and make more connections that we just haven't gotten around to, that I'd really, really like to see, because I think we have an amazing location, a lot going for us, a lot of people that truly care. It's just about pushing these things through and getting someone to do them. So in my square, Kristen and I did the building over. Great. We took out another loan. Hooray for us, right? I mean, but we couldn't leave the building looking the way it did, so we did a major renovation and refaced the whole thing, which then kind of, like anything, it kind of set off a little domino effect. So across the street from us was sold and redone. And I heard that someone just rented the first floor, which is awesome. It's going to be another woman that owns an accessory business. I guess she's a Braintree woman. I don't know much about it. I wish that I knew about her so I could have put her in Bellassay next to me, because I think the walking traffic for her would have been amazing from Pure Vita and Kristen's and myself and whatever. So I can't wait to meet her and support her business. The VFW next door, that just lost its liquor license. I guess apparently the woman that was moving into there was supposed to be Stacy's Bar and Grill. I think that was right. Am I right on that, Kim? I don't know.
I think so. I saw that on the news that she
Yeah.
had a deadline to open, and
Yeah,
I
and
didn't
it
know
looked
what
like
happened
it
for
had
that.
great plans to
Yep.
open up to be like a little bar and grill, and she never moved forward with it. I don't know if it's because she bought it during or after the pandemic, but unfortunately, it's kind of just sitting there. So I'm really hoping either if she sells it, that somebody else with the bar and grill, that square. Pisano's is opening. I don't know if everybody knows that. And the Braintree Cooperative Building has been working diligently to open up like a carry out and like a deli and food business. But we need a sit down, like a South Side in the North Square. You know what I mean? In North Braintree Square, we need a place where people can come for lunch from 400 and 420 Washington Street, and all the banks and all the small businesses that, and listen, I love all the businesses around there, but even after work to go and get a glass of wine, get an appetizer, hang out, we need something like that down there. So if I had to make a wish, that would be my number one wish.
Awesome, thank you. All right, I have a couple questions in the chat. I'm going to combine them. Peter from our chamber and Jill Amato from Mountain One Bank both have a similar question. What's the next move? Have you ever thought about expanding Glow to other locations? And maybe I'll just read this. Multiple storefronts, build the investment real estate business, or something completely different?
Okay.
What's next for you?
What's next for me? Isn't that the
I have
big
a second
question?
follow-on question.
Yeah, no, I mean, that has been the big question. I've been exploring that a lot now that I kind of feel like I've been, every time I feel like I can take a breath after I've gotten things together, something else comes. So I was meeting with an architect yesterday, and a designer. My next step, because it's 20 years at Glow in September, like I mentioned, I'm doing a renovation. So that's kind of exciting. I mean, I believe the footprint will stay the same, but we rebranded about 10 years ago. And I feel like to kind of reflect where we are now, and the services we've added and the things we do, I believe that not only do the clients, but the employees and staff deserve to come into a renovated space. I feel like one of the things that the pandemic did do is brought out some people that wanted to open businesses, and they're doing it now, right? I've always kind of been on the forefront of things. So I don't want to be left behind. And I also don't want people coming to work to be like, oh, it's always looked the same. It's been the same for 10 years. I think it's important not only for me, but for them psychologically, and also clients to realize like, yeah, we're back on our feet, but we still want to reinvest in where we're at. You know what I mean? So painting and, sanding floors and rebranding a little bit, new ceiling tiles and, maybe another new room. I'm trying to get the most out of that. We have talked to the town, and I don't think it's possible, but Kim might be able to help me with this at some point. Kristen and I talked about a while ago, we weren't ready for it at the time, but going up. Maybe putting some residential, only like, probably only one story, max 2. Fraser Electric did an amazing job over by Campanelli's. I think he did a really tasteful job. But I think we have a parking situation. You know what I mean? Because we only have so many spots in the back. But I do think that kind of calls for it in that area. Everybody around us has apartments or condos. And I think it's a really nice location, and it keeps things in walking distance and keeps businesses within the square. There's a bus right there that can bring people right down to the train station. And I think it'd be nice. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it would be approved or whatever. I know I did talk to Melissa over at town planning a while ago, but we had just taken out like our third loan, right? First loan of the building, second loan of the other building, paid off the note, got another loan to do the thing over. Kristen kind of looked at me. She goes, "Can we stop? Like, can we just stop?" I'm like, "No, but I think it would look really pretty."
No,
Our
the
entrepreneurial
walkability,
mindset.
yeah, it's a great synergy for those businesses to have people there and the vibrancy and walking and everything else.
Yeah, exactly. And then as far as a second, Glow, I've been approached many times to make a franchise. Because we work off a list, because we have systems and team member handbooks and operational handbooks, it really does lend itself to a franchise or an owner run type, multiple locations. I did have kids a little bit later than most. And so I always say my first baby was Glow. And then 5 years later, I had my son. And I really wanted to make sure that I was there for my kids. So I've always, every time it's come up, I've kind of pulled it back only because, they're only young for a certain amount of time and then they're gone. So maybe I'll revisit that at some point. I think if I did do something like that, it would be more giving someone who currently works for me an opportunity to use the name and be some sort, like own that space and be some sort of like a profit holder or something. I think I'd explore that before I would explore like multiple locations on my own or franchising. Yeah.
Awesome. Great questions. Okay, last question, and then I'll open it up for final questions if anyone has one. What is your favorite role of all the roles you play?
Mentoring.
Oh, I like it.
We have empowerment meetings every month without fail. Everybody gets pretty much an hour. We go over KPIs and numbers and stuff like that. But more importantly, and I think it's because of my upbringing. Back when I opened up a salon, like, most women would go and get married and have their husband's benefits or their pension or their retirement. I'm very big on making sure that people are not only paid well for what they do, but fiscally sound. I have a 401k plan. We match 4%. We have paid time off, 50% health insurance I pay. I sit down, I have someone come in and talk to them about how they need to save their money, where it needs to go, Roth IRAs, and we make personal and professional goals. So a personal goal could be, I want to be a homeowner. That could be a condo, a house. How do we get there? And then if I can't help you, then I will find somebody that can help you. Like we've worked with, what does EV run? Home Habitat for Humanity. We've done stuff with them before. I put my girls on the list. We haven't got the housing, but they make good money. But it's really watching people grow personally, professionally. Everybody has to have 3 education per year that we pay for. I think that's really important. I think it's really important to have fiscal independence and prepare for your retirement. And if you don't know how to do it, I'd be happy to help, you know? That's kind of how I always treated it.
That's awesome. Great response. Okay, Sheila, you get the last word.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's Sheila Shelley from Murphy and
Sheila,
Sherman.
I know I saw you. I wasn't going to call you out. I was going to be like, oh, Sheila.
Well, I have a business around the corner from Shelley, an
Mhm.
insurance agency on Stores Ave in Braintree.
Yep.
And I've been going to Glow, I think, is for the last 20
Oh,
years.
yeah, 19 and a half
It's been
years,
that long. So I just want to congratulate you on such a successful business.
Thank you.
Great to just see how you've been growing and always, changing and improving. And I actually have an appointment there today.
I'll see you.
And no, you just have such a professional staff. I can see how they're so well trained, and just wanted to wish you well and congratulate you on all your success.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you, Sheila.
Awesome. All right. Thank you again. Thank you, Shelley, for joining us. Again, it was really fun to get to know you a little bit more. I'm sure
Great
we'll
to be here.
be,
Thank
chatting with you more in the next little bit here, and let us know how we can help with your Braintree project. We're always looking for more housing to be added to the right areas in the South Shore. So it sounds like it's a great match, and we're just happy to have both of you here to kind of spotlight what's going on in Braintree and talk about all the great things that you both have been doing in the region. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you for sharing a little bit about your story. I'm going to just close it out by doing a couple plugs. One is for the Braintree Chamber after hours that Kim put in the chat. And the second one is for the South Shore Chamber after hours, which is on Thursday at the Moonrise Cinemas in Plymouth also. So we hope that you'll be able to join us for those and continue to stay connected and engaged in the South Shore Chamber's work. And just thank you all for joining us this morning. All right. Have a great day.
Thanks for having me. Have a
Everyone.
great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.